welcome. This is the first episode of Dirty Air. Finally, NASCAR kind of right around the corner. So we're going to try and be the best NASCAR podcast, focus on DFS, gambling, maybe the Cup Series, kind of keep it all in the Cup Series. I'm sure we'll get off on tangents and we'll, do whatever. I'm Ryan Baumel. I'm the host, and I've decided that I'm going to have two of the best NASCAR DFS analysts on the internet with me on this show. So Jason, he goes by DFS NASCAR on Twitter. Jason, say hello.
Hello, Ryan. Thank you. Jason Hamlet, DFS NASCAR. Really excited about doing this with you guys. Got two good guys here to do this with.
And the other side of that, Brandon Cruz, DFS, CRUZ on Twitter. Brandon, what's up?
Hey, just happy to be here. Happy to be looking at the week going in. I'm looking forward to just chatting previews and, looking forward to each week early in the week.
So real quick, let's, Jason, I'll start with you. For the people that don't know, I'm sure there's not very many people that don't know, but for the people that don't know you or what you do on Twitter for NASCAR, just give us a quick intro.
I run freenascardfs.com. It's a website where I do cheat sheets, breakdowns each week for pretty much every single NASCAR slate. Do that all free. Obviously, I have Twitter at DFS NASCAR. Just something that, I've always been passionate about NASCAR. Grew up as an avid NASCAR fan. I can remember going to the racetrack, as early as 10 years old. I think was my first Brickyard 400. Something that's just always been with me growing up. And I can remember also being a kid. We were playing DFS back before DFS was cool. We were drawing random numbers out of the bucket for each of the big races, and you get a pool of drivers, and I think everybody paid like $5, and I was doing that like 12 years old. So it's just something that once the DFS started and became mainstream, especially once they started getting into NASCAR. Obviously, I played fantasy football like everybody else, and then once NASCAR started getting into the DFS, and it was, I just started searching for a lot of the data that was hard to find. And I would find myself spending hours, populating and putting all this stuff together to get all the data that I want to look at. And then I just started thinking, I'm doing all this work, I might as well share it. And it just started with me posting cheat sheets on Twitter, and it's just grown into something a lot bigger than that after a couple years. So pretty excited, but really excited about having Brandon on here. Brandon knows a lot more about a lot of the ins and outs of NASCAR and the behind the scenes stuff that I don't know about. So it's really great to have that knowledge on board for this show for the duration of the season.
Well, and it'll make it easy on my segues if you just do them for me. That's great, because my next thing is with Brandon, the other side of this two-headed monster we've got on here. Like I said, you guys are kind of the analyst here, the NASCAR. I'm the newer NASCAR guy within the past 4, 5, 6 years. I kind of started paying more attention. So my job's kind of just to hopefully try and keep this show going where we need to go. But Brandon, you are the other side of the analyst for us. Give the listeners, for those who don't know, a little about you. I know you do some streams, you got a YouTube, everything all about that.
Yeah, so I'm a guy who's been around racing my whole life. I helped build race cars for about 4 to 5 years. I traveled with a team throughout southern New Mexico, West Texas, on a modified team. Crewed during the races, helped build the cars on the ground up, and so I got that interest in racing from actually doing it. And then the whole DFS, how I got into it was obviously, as someone who enjoys playing poker, there's really no way to play poker in Texas and in the US online, even since everything's pretty much illegal right now. And DFS was the next closest thing to get around that. And I was already a NASCAR fan. I've been watching it ever since I grew up, and I got into it, and I just started off way better than I thought I would. And it's gone from me going on my YouTube, Brandon Cruz DFS, going on there, 3-4 years ago, just wanting to put my opinion out there for almost an archive, if you will, about if I wanted to go back and see what I did wrong or see what I did right. And people started listening. People started liking what they were hearing. I did a stint with DFS Tavern last year, so if you kind of recognize me or my name, it might be from there. But this year I'm on my own. I got my own Patreon, doing my own stuff, and I'll have a live stream with Race for the Prize. That's Pierce Dietrich every Sunday morning. So we're excited to do that every year. And I mean, I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to talk NASCAR with some other people.
You were one of the originals that when I was first getting into NASCAR, because I come at it from a different angle. That I was the guy 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was, Twitter searching, YouTube searching, NASCAR DFS, Cup DFS, doing all that stuff just to get my information. And it was always your videos that kind of always came up. So you're kind of one of the OGs for me, at least that I've seen. And like I said, I think the beauty of this show is that we come at it from three different angles. Jason's kind of that lifelong fan that's always been, a part of it. Brandon, obviously, you being a lifelong fan, but also having the ends of it and seeing how it works from the inside and kind of all of that, I think provides a good, unique perspective. And then for me,
Brandon
where
gets
it's kind
down
of
into the nitty gritty of the back end of this sport, which is just like he covers the sport differently than pretty much anybody else out there. So he sees angles that, I mean, this guy knows what chassis each teams are running. I mean, mad props, Brandon. And like you, to add to that, I was listening to Brandon back before I even started producing any cheat sheets when I first started DFS NASCAR. So,
And see, like I'm more nervous to do this than pretty much anything I've already done because you guys, Jason, you messaged me right when you started. You were like, "Hey, thanks for making these videos. Thanks for getting me into this." I mean, like you guys just said there, you guys are just flattering me left and right. So I'm more nervous to do this than I do when I rant about drivers or chassis or dumb decisions NASCAR's doing.
well, we can
it's
stop
easy to
with
rant about
the
those dumb decisions.
we can stop with the compliment blowjobs if it's making you uncomfortable.
But I know
All
I
I
do
do
think
is ramble. Like I said, I just started putting my stuff up there. I didn't know if anybody would like it or not, and right. Obviously, you guys knew who I am, and I'm sure other people feel the same way.
Yeah, and I think it, like I was saying, I do think that it provides a good, unique perspective. Like Jason said, the nitty gritty, seeing, understanding how the cars are made and what you do to make a car faster and what you do to at the different tracks. And, even like you said, being on the crew and realizing how the pit crews operate and, what little things that a casual NASCAR fan might not see that you see. And it's like that makes the biggest difference because we all know on pit road, that can be the difference. And like I said, for me coming at it from a point of view, I was, gambling DFS, kind of a casual NASCAR fan. And then it's like, well, if I'm going to start playing this seriously, I'm going to start looking more into, the stats of everything and how things work and, not really even understanding how it works. So I do think we all kind of come at it from a different angle. And I think it provides a good perspective for the show. But with that being said, I do think we are going to kind of make this podcast kind of a work in progress as we go because we are all different, and I do think there's different segments we're going to be able to put in, on a weekly basis and kind of figure it out as we go. And something we've all talked about is that if you guys, the listeners, if you guys have certain things where you think whether it's questions or segments or things that you think we can make this show better, more enjoyable for you guys, definitely let us know because I think that's the easiest way to do it. I think the first thing, kind of just start off on a general thing, unless you guys have anything else. I was just going to talk about the changes for the 2021 season.
Well, I just want to kind of add to just the fact of I don't think we really touched on like what this show is going to be. I think we're going to gear this show more towards an early week preview for the slate that's upcoming. So every week we're planning on releasing a early. I think we're probably planning on trying to record on Tuesday. So it's going to be before we even get salaries from DraftKings. So it's going to be kind of our first look at the weekend coming up and what things we're looking at, what we're expecting out of salary, and just how we're approaching the week as we go. Because we all have other content that we'll do. So then this will be kind of the launch point, and then you guys can check out the rest of our content for the rest of the week when things start finally.
Well, Jason, what is that other content that we all have?
Well, I have a website, freenascardfs.com. I'll be putting articles up on there for each slate and giving some advice, picks, and hopefully gearing people towards the green and hopefully gearing myself more towards the green too.
Yeah, and then like I said, or like you just said, this is more of a preview for the Cup Series. If you guys are looking for any Xfinity or truck videos or something to look at, you can find it on my channel as well.
And yeah, and I think kind of I do more kind of the gambling aspect of it because my philosophy is, well, why do I need to get into the DFS angle when I've got Jason and Brandon and I can just use their information because they're two of the best. So I don't need to do that. I just use their information, which you guys should do as well. But yeah, I think it's kind of like Jason, as you said, I think we've talked about it, before, maybe some sort of a segment, if we're doing it before the salaries come out about, predicting where drivers are going to be in the DraftKings pricings, whether it's in tiers or pricing and stuff like that. Because I think that's always the most interesting thing. Because we know when salaries come out, there's always that one driver, whether he's way overpriced or way underpriced. And in every single Discord, the guy's like, I cannot believe this guy's whatever price. And that happens every single week, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anything on that?
No, I think you summed it up pretty good. Yeah.
So yeah, I would say let's get into these 2021 changes, the ones that I have, and then if I've missed anything, you guys feel free to let me know as well. So the guys that I have that were full-time drivers that are no longer full-time drivers are Boyer, Jimmy Johnson, Matt Kenseth. Nemechek goes to, I believe it's the Truck Series, and then Ty Dillon, I believe, is not a full-time ride as of right now.
Okay, let's stop there. So who are we going to miss the most out of that bunch?
Well, is that from a DFS perspective or from like a NASCAR fan watching perspective?
I guess a NASCAR fan perspective.
For me, it's got to be Boyer as a casual fan. He's just, I know he's not the, he's I guess hasn't had the success, especially recently, that a lot of people thought he could have. But Boyer's the guy that, you know, he's always entertaining, whether it's in the booth or, which I'm sure he'll still be, or you know, when they do the in-car listenings. Boyer's kind of that guy. I guess Jimmy's always a fan favorite, but for me, Boyer's, since I've become a fan, Boyer's been top 2 or 3 driver for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to fall into that role of a 12th place driver each week without Boyer in the field.
Jason, what's your answer to that? Who are you going to miss the most?
I guess you got to go 7-time, right? I mean, he's just been a staple in the league for so long. I mean, it's going to be weird not seeing him out there, and definitely going to be strange seeing Alex Bowman in the 48. So that's going to definitely take some getting adjusted to.
And from a DFS perspective, I mean, you played Nemechek almost every week, didn't you? I mean,
it's funny. I'm sitting here looking at my notes, and yes, Clint Boyer average finish for the year was 12, and he actually had the lowest variance of any driver. So yeah, he pretty much finished 12th every week.
I'm telling you, I know this off the top of my head. I'm not even looking at that.
So yeah, so you mentioned a couple of them, but so the 2021 driver changes that I have, the big ones, Chris Bell, which obviously if you listened to us last year, if you know, he's not Christopher Bell, he is Chris Bell. Chris Bell, he goes to the number 20, the Joe Gibbs, which Eric Jones was in. Bowman goes from the 88 to the 48, still obviously Hendrick. What is there? Is he bringing his crew with him? Is that how that's working? Do we know?
Ask that again. I'm sorry.
Do we know? So Bowman's going from the 88 to the 48. Is he bringing the same crew with him, or is Hendrick switching around the crews?
They're just switching around the drivers. The 48, I believe the 88 turns into the 5, and then the 48 crew stays the 48 crew. Okay,
so Bowman will take over Jimmy's crew, and then Larson will take over, I guess, Bowman's crew in the 5.
Yeah.
And then I guess
just real quick, I guess Chris Bell, man. I think I really like Chris Bell to start the season. I think he did some good things at the end of the year. I think he's only going to get better in that 20 car. Adam Stevens going to bring some experience to him. Chris Bell, I definitely like me some Chris Bell this season.
Do you think and I guess this is a hard way to phrase this question. Do you think he earned his spot in the 20 last year, or do you think he's in the 20 because of he was Chris Bell coming up through and, you know, he was just going to be the guy?
I mean, I think, he earned it more. I mean, I think Eric Jones really didn't show much to stay in that 20 car. I mean, he was very inconsistent and wadded up a lot of race cars, you know. You got to perform in that Gibbs. You got to perform in Gibbs equipment. And unfortunately, Jones didn't and opened the door up for Bell. That's my opinion.
And so, Brandon, on the other side of that, Eric Jones, he's going to the 43, obviously a downgrade in the equipment and everything from what he was at the 20. Do you think at some point Jones uses this to get back to a bigger ride, or do you think this is kind of where Jones is going to be for a while?
You know, that's a difficult question. I think Jones, and this is coming from a Wallace fan, but I think Jones has more talent in a race car than Bubba Wallace has. He has more experience in better equipment. And I see Jones, I mean, he's not going to win any race. It's not going to be fighting for top 10s, but he should be an inside, 19th, 18th place driver, barely squeezing in that top 20, which I just think Bubba can do that because of his, talent and what he needs from a car. He needs a car that's extremely stable. And when you're Richard Petty and running, kind of secondhand RCR equipment. You really can't afford to have, that, especially, I believe he was with Baxter or one of his old crew chiefs from the truck series. And I just don't think that dynamic really transferred well into that 43 car last year.
And so then obviously the other side of that we were just talking about, so Bubba, he goes to the newly formed in the 23. Are they calling it 23 XI or are they calling it 2311? Do we know what they're calling that?
It should be 2311 Racing.
Yeah. So 2311 Racing, obviously the
XI is Roman numerals for 11, Ryan.
No, I understand. I understand that part. There may not be much I understand, but that,
I'm going to call it 23XI just to make it a bit longer.
I mean, his
23XL, right?
I just, we're trendsetters here. That's how it's going to be, right? What if in 2 years they're being called 23XI? Then who's going to have started, Jason? It'll be us, and we'll be popular.
25 Xi. Doesn't the X make the Z? 25 Xi. 23.
And people wonder how we get off on tangents.
Real quick, speaking of precedents and starting something, can we all agree to not use the word dominator this year?
What?
Because nobody dominates anymore.
You're right.
Domination should be when you win a football game, 43-3, when you lead 400 of 500 laps, and nobody really does that anymore.
Well,
so
they're called they're called dominator points, though, right?
No, but they're called fast laps, place differential, and laps led. So I
like to lump all the laps led and the fast laps into dom points category.
Oh man, I've been indoctrinated. I see the other way, and I am not a fan of the word dominator anymore.
You're not. What about Chase Elliott at Martinsville? That was a domination, right?
Was it really? I mean, the start of the
114 dom points.
Well, it's easy when the race is 500 laps. Would you? I mean, you could say, if you want to argue that. I mean,
had 69, Martin Truex.
So so Truex dominated the first half, and then he was like, "Nah, it's Elliott's term." Whereas you could just be like, "Hey, you know what? Truex was a lap leader in the beginning when he moved Brad out of the way at the start of that race, and then Chase Elliott took over leading laps after that."
I think, just the way I guess I see it is I always classify a dominator as somebody who racked up X amount of dom points for that race, A lot of my baseline I go by is around like 20 dominator points. I mean, if you get a guy that's putting up over 20 dominator points, as long as he finishes and doesn't take a heavy hit in PD, he's going to have a good race for you. You got to factor that in somehow. But
the last reason I bring that up is because last year, obviously without practice, we had a lot of quote-unquote projected dominators not even lead laps or anything like that. And I feel like that was a mistake. A majority of either casual fans or people who, not saying they weren't thinking, but like in your mind when you're like, hey, I need to make this list of dominators, or who's going to be my 2 or 3 dominators. Whereas I think I know it's simple, but I think if you look at it in terms of, who could lead laps, I know it's saying the same thing, but I feel like that would have helped a lot of people out last year of, if I'm looking at people who can at least lead laps, I might not put all my eggs in the Harvick basket, then it rains and NASCAR doesn't throw a yellow. Or, Logano or Blaney expected to be a dominator and they don't even show up.
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of these races, like you said, they are a little bit more unpredictable this year without the practice. I know that's an edge that I can tell you right now I lost from last season, is not having those practices. Those practices was huge. Just watching the broadcast, and you pick up a lot and learn about a lot about the weekend and who's been doing what. So not having that, you have everybody actually, looking at the exact same stats. Everybody's looking at the same things. So it's creating a lot of, we're definitely a lot of higher ownership on quote unquote dominators. When, like you said, yes, they're not really dominating races anymore. But if you have a race where only 2 guys scored over 20 dominator points, having those 2 guys is probably pretty important to cash in.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of not dominating races, Bubba Wallace in that 23.
Oh yeah, that's who we were talking about.
Right? So Jason, what do you? I know obviously it's kind of hard to
It's hard.
predicted
It's hard to
the
tell
team.
with a brand new team. He's got a Toyota. It's good. I'm going as far as saying I think he can win on a super speedway this year. I think having the help of the other Toyota teammates, I think it's very possible to see him in victory lane on the super speedway this year. But outside of that, I don't know. Maybe like I can see him running like without knowing anything about it. Is he going to jump up drastically more than last season? Can he be a top 15 driver? Maybe, but I don't think you can give him too much more outside of that.
Now, Brandon, do we know much about the car he's got, the money they've put into it? Do we know much about what he's working with as opposed to the 43 he had last year?
Well, I got some things that I want to look at. So one, obviously, you got Michael Jordan. Say what you will with him and Pitbull coming in. I doubt Jordan is gonna. And I don't understand why all these celebrities are coming in now, but I doubt he's gonna not put in the money or at least the will to get good equipment. Obviously, this is Denny Hamlin's team, and Denny Hamlin is very close to Joe Gibbs because of the rules. You can't run 5 cars with the teams anymore. But this is as close. I mean, this is going to be a factory Joe Gibbs racing car. It's not going to be like a Levine family racing to where, oh, they get help here and there, or Front Row Motorsports, or not Front Row, Furniture Row back in the day, to where they started getting help from Joe Gibbs early, and then they kind of got motors and they kind of got chassis. If Hamlin's involved in this, Hamlin isn't going to get second class Joe Gibbs vehicles. I would imagine that since they're Joe Gibbs affiliate, obviously Gibbs wants to, be in the press or at least, be known to help. And I doubt that Gibbs is going to I doubt he's going to charge Denny a lot of money. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Joe is giving Denny a huge discount on all the equipment that they're going to be using for Bubba Wallace. And because of that, I know I just went on how I think we're going to see Eric Jones get more out of the car, even though he's in the 43. I think that this is going to help Bubba out, and it's going to almost give him a buffer between his lack of talent and the car that he's driving, to where he should be able to race for top 15s, even top 10s here, because we've seen him run well in the Truck Series, in the Xfinity Series, when he's had good equipment. When he's had bad equipment in those series, he doesn't do anything.
So you see this kind of being more as the relationship Truex had with Furniture Row Racing, as opposed to not, So basically, I know all the cars are different in their own way, but you see this, like you said, as basically just being a Gibbs factory car, like it was, a Kyle Busch or a Denny Hamlin car.
Yeah, I don't see it as being, a secondhand, chassis that's been used for half a year. I mean, I assume there's going to be some of those in this stable, but for a vast majority, especially this year when the Gen 6 is so cheap because they're going to the Gen 7 next year. I mean, Joe Gibbs has no reason to charge, top of the line money to Hamlin right now. And that's the whole reason why this team even exists right now, because it's a cheaper entry than waiting for the Gen 7 next year and trying to catch up, whereas they can just buy older equipment from Joe Gibbs Racing or just buy new equipment for Joe Gibbs Racing on the cheap right now.
And I think
from a DFS standpoint, I think with Bubba, I mean, at least the way I'm kind of approaching him right now for the season without seeing too much more is he's going to be a guy this season, kind of pretty much comparable to where he was last season, where you don't want to be on him when the field's on him. You want to be on him when the field's off of him. He's a high variance play, and you want to play those high variance plays when the field against the field. You want to let those high variance plays bust when the field's on him. So he's definitely gonna be a guy you're gonna be playing for ownership. You're not. I don't imagine us seeing him at like $9,500 and 30% owned at the end of the season. So.
Mm-hmm.
And Brandon, I think you brought up another good point too. I think coming, for me, from a casual fan point of view, it's like Michael Jordan doesn't seem like the kind of guy that, like, let's just put a car in there. It's like Michael Jordan's going to put a car in there to try and win some races and try and make some money and try and, Michael Jordan's the Tiger Woods of basketball. I'm not playing for second place. That's kind of how I see it from that, point of view. And Denny's got the money. Michael's got the money. Obviously, like you said, they've got the connection with Joe Gibbs. So I do think that they're in a pretty decent spot. And I think it helps Bubba because it's obviously better than what he had, last year. But
see
some
how
of the
much
other
Jordan
guys,
likes the money when Bubba starts wadding up those cars.
Well,
that's true.
Like, I was going to bring this up. Jordan is a terrible business owner. He's a terrible investor, and he's a terrible gambler. But he's going to throw a ton of money this direction. But I mean, he gambles like crazy. The only reason the Jordan brand succeeded, and I'm stealing this from Pierce in our last podcast. But the only reason that succeeded is because he had nothing to do with it. He had nothing to do with that other than it's his name. So he's going to be throwing a lot of money at it. I think he understands that, hey, this is going to be expensive. I'm sure Hamlin has already told him that, hey, these plate tracks, just count that money goodbye. And Jordan's like, okay, well, screw it. I'm not doing anything right now.
So, and then I think the other big change for me, at least, from both a casual fan, a DFS fan, and somebody who just watches the sport, is Chastain to the 42. Obviously, it was the former Kyle Larson car that Kenseth had driven last year. Jason, what are your expectations for Chastain? Obviously, he's moving up. He's driven some Cup races here and there, but moving up from Xfinity Series to the Cup Series. What are your expectations for him in the 42?
Oh, I'm going to have my Homer hat on for this. I love Ross Chastain. I don't know, maybe because he shook my boy's hand and signed his stuff, but I have high expectations out of Ross Chastain this season. As far as I'm okay, when I say high expectations, is I think he's going to have the upside to compete for top fives. Maybe a handful of times this season. I don't expect him to win, but he's going to be another high variance play, just like Bubba. He's going to be a guy who you're not going to want to be on him when the field's on him, because he's definitely going to wad up some race cars too. But he's going to drive hard, and I think he's going to be a guy that's always going to have a high ceiling. I mean, when I say high ceiling, a higher ceiling compared to what he's probably going to be priced around.
And so this might be just me being more of a newer kind of guy. So Larson, when he was in the 42, is that kind of what was that the peak of the 42? Because obviously what Larson did, what Kenseth did in two very different years are completely thing. Kyle Larson was winning races and competitive almost every week, and Matt Kenseth was trying to stay on the lead lap for a lot of times.
The hottest that 42 car's ever been is when Juan Pablo ran it into the fuel truck.
Yeah, that was one of the first times I had ever watched like a NASCAR race like in full, like just sit down and watch. And I remember like how does that happen? I just from I'm stupid, but how does that happen? Like I just don't get it. But obviously it's Juan Pablo, and that's how it happens. And then so obviously we'll talk more about these guys, especially at the super speedways. But a couple of the
hold on, Brandon, did you have anything about Chastain?
Oh yeah, I'm about to crucify your poi boy right here. So let's go back. Let's take a gander back through the 42's legacy. Let's start at Casey Mears back in the day, never really competitive. Juan Pablo Montoya, never really competitive, had a lot of equipment failures. Move up to Kyle Larson. He was getting way more out of that car than anybody else had. And I mean, he's a driver. If you see him on dirt, if you see him racing anything, he's getting 120% out of his cars every single time. Now, when you're running that hard, when you have to run that hard to overcome the disadvantage that those cars have, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get in the wall. That's why you'd always see him get in the wall at Homestead. Everybody would be like, oh, he's fast at Homestead, but he would get into the wall a lot. If you look at Kurt Busch in that same car or in that same equipment, yeah, sure, he won a race last year, but Kurt knows what he's doing, and he's not necessarily racing at the top percentage of the Cup Series guys. And now you look at Matt Kenseth. Matt Kenseth is no slouch. It's a shame how his career ended. He basically just got taken behind the barn and put down in this car because he was ignorant on how poorly these cars were and how poorly this setup or this package was. And I can't see Chastain, who sure, he beats up on rich kids in the Xfinity Series where there's no competition, but I can't see Chastain getting anywhere close to what Larson got out of those. I don't expect him to wreck as much as Kenseth did because, as I said, Kenseth didn't understand what he was getting into. I mean, he even said himself he couldn't believe that they've been running this, package for the last couple of years. So he shouldn't wreck nearly as much as Kenseth does, based on he's at least familiar with what the Cup Series runs now. But I highly doubt we'll see a big improvement. Maybe he won't DNF as much, but he'll be running 23rd, 22nd.
So going back to what you were saying originally with Larson getting more out of his car, what are your expectations with him now getting into a Hendrick car and obviously getting everything he needs?
He should whoop some ass, That's just plain and simple. He shouldn't win 20 races, but top 10 is his floor. I mean, he should be racing up in the top 5 anytime he can. He'll be on par with Chase Elliott. It's going to be the same thing Chase Elliott does. Some weeks he'll be competing for the win, other weeks he'll be running seventh or sixth, but it's going to be the same thing.
And that's the beauty of Brandon, is that sometimes it requires a bunch of analysis and getting into the nitty gritty, and sometimes it's just he whoops some ass. Like that's just that. Sometimes that's just what it is. He's going to whoop some ass. That's the prediction. Jason,
I will.
yours
I
the same.
wouldn't be I agree with all the sentiments. I think Kyle Larson's going to have a great season, but I wouldn't be shocked if he got off to a slow start. Like I wouldn't be shocked if it takes 6 to 8 weeks, without practice, new team, new setup, getting you adjusted to everybody, without the seat time in the practice, been a while out of the season. I wouldn't be shocked if he got off to a slow start. But yeah, I think he will come to form at some point in the season and be pretty competitive.
Well, I mean, the guy doesn't even have a sponsor right now, and I know everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, he has Nation Guard on his car for Daytona." That's a Rick Hendrick company. That's the same thing that Hendrick cars. Like he doesn't have a sponsor. Nobody's willing to sponsor this guy, and so I understand that. I would imagine he understands the position he's in, to where, look, he's going to be blacklisted from a lot of stuff unless he just ends up dominating. Then somebody's going to probably hop on that isn't a contingency sponsor of Hendrick, like Valvoline or someone like that. So I think he'll perform. I don't see him really struggling out of the gate. And if he does, it'll be the first 4 weeks, but that's about it.
So, do you think the key to him getting sponsorships is being successful and winning, or do you think it's companies wanting to see the reaction he gets now that he's back behind a car?
Well, if it was based on reaction, they'd be sponsoring him already with everything he's been doing with all his organizations and all his free time last year and everything. They'd already be back if they really cared about him.
So I think it's kind of, at some point you've got to prove your worth to be back, and obviously he's proved his worth in terms of everything he's done off the track and trying to fix his wrongs. But obviously that last step is coming back on the track and winning, or at the very least performing to a level where sponsorships they can. It's easy to throw support behind somebody. It's a lot harder to throw some money behind somebody. That's a famous phrase that I heard once. The other guy I want to ask about is Daniel Suarez. He seems like ever since he lost his ride a couple years ago to Stuart Haas, in Stuart Haas, I should say. He's kind of moved around a couple, and now he's in the 99. I believe that's a Trackhouse car this year. What is that? Are we assuming that's just going to be kind of a back marker, kind of what he's been in, or what are we thinking about that?
Well, Suarez got the short end of the stick at a lot of places. With Stuart Haas, they had the worst equipment there, and then he got put in the worst equipment at obviously Joe Gibbs and then Gaunt Brothers last year. And I mean, he was doing well last year at the end of the last quarter, last half of the year in that 99 car or that 96 car. Cause I mean, he was getting more out of that than he should have. He was finishing, 24th, 23rd with equipment and against guys where he should be finishing, 29th, 30th, and things of that nature.
And he was finishing races. He was keeping the car clean.
I mean, he had sponsorship the whole time. Granted, it was NBC or NASCAR affiliated stuff, but he gets a lot of attention, a lot of international attention. I don't think a lot of people in America really realize that, but kind of just like Juan Pablo, to where people, recognize Juan Pablo from different countries and different areas of racing. I mean, Suarez is huge in Mexico and in South America. I mean, it's stupid for someone not to have him in a good ride. I don't really know how Trackhouse is going to do. I can't imagine it's any worse than, the Quinn Hoff car and the 00 or any of the Rick Ware cars, even though I expect them to be better this year. But he should, be a 24th place driver.
Jason,
yeah,
any
that's
thoughts
what
on
I
that?
expect. I mean, I don't expect him, like you said, I don't expect this to be a step up in ride without actually seeing. Like I said, I don't know much about Trackhouse and the funding in that program, but like you said, I can definitely see his average finish last year was right around like 28th. I mean, by the way the season ended, so I can definitely see him probably maybe improving that a little bit. But he's going to be a guy who you're going to be paying cheap for, and you're going to be just hoping for him to finish the race in around 25th, 24th most weeks is ideally where you're going to be playing Daniel Suarez at. But this is a guy who didn't get a lot of love last year as far as an ownership, because he just wasn't, like you said, he didn't have upside to really come through top 20s like some guys that may have been priced around him when, you had your John Hunter Nemecheks and stuff like that. But he was always consistent and keeping the car clean. It was surprising to see that he was fourth best in laps completed for the year last year. That was something that kind of stood out when I was going through 2020 stats, and definitely stood out to see Suarez keeping the car clean all year like that.
Yeah, well, Suarez knows how to drive, and the thing that kept his ownership down last year was he was around, the high fives, the low 6,000s,
Right,
whereas,
yeah.
If he was around, 5,200, 5,400, based on where he was starting, I mean, everybody would be on him. I mean, he was just overpriced the entire year. That's all it came down to.
Yeah, he was typically always priced around, like your Michael McDowell's, your Ty Dillons, like I said, the guys who had a little bit more upside than he did.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And the other guy down there that seemed to get a decent amount of ownership when he is priced at a lower level that some people tend to get on. So Corey LaJoie, he's now in the number 7, the Spire. Obviously, last year it was a combination of what Balicki and Smithley, and I think Joey Gase drove it a couple times. I think Yaley was in it a couple times. So that was kind of obviously a mix there. LaJoie's a guy that, especially at super speedways, gets a decent amount of attention. I don't know what his actual average finish is, but seems like a guy that, is kind of in that, 25th for the most part, 25 to 30. Definitely has some top 20 potential. What's the changes there, Brandon, between the 32 he was in last year and the 7 this year, or is this kind of a wait and see situation?
Well, here, I'll give some context to his history at the plate tracks. He was running an old chassis. I believe it was a Penske chassis. Something made 10, 15 years ago when the COT first came out. And it was just set up great for the plate tracks. And he had ran it every plate track other than the one he wrecked at, either Talladega Spring last year, or he was involved in one super speedway wreck. And it just happened to not be that car. And then at Talladega later in the year, or in the fall Talladega race last year, they brought that car back. He had a fuel pump issue and went 8 laps down, and he came back and he was still stupid quick. I mean, I don't want to say that LaJoie is good. I think that car had a lot of the reason. One, his position to be an underfunded car and not want to tear up stuff. And then 2, the car that he was running was really fast at the plate track. So I don't, obviously he did well. He's done well at the plate tracks. I don't really want to overstate that because I don't think that really stays. And I think he's taken a step back. Honestly, I know he's like, oh, this is the best car I've been in.
He thinks he is ill excited about this ride, ain't he?
I mean, he thinks he's the shit right now, and I'm like, you're an Aspire car. You were better with the Go Fast,
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on this. Is I don't think this is definitely not a step up. If anything, it's just it's a lateral movement or backwards in my opinion.
I agree.
And so, Jason, the last question I have about a driver. So in a weird situation, Matty D, he's basically been told that, he's got the car, it's a full-time ride this year, but this is his last year in it. What are your expectations for him, and what do you see his future being?
Oh, man. I can't see it. I mean, I don't see him making any, like a step forward more than he did last year, to be honest. I mean, he's in good equipment. He was a consistent driver last year as far as like how he finished. He was one of the lower variance drivers overall for the season. I think you kind of man, I don't know, Matty D. He's just kind of that blah. He's always priced in that range where I just never really feel like playing him. He's always starting in that range where it doesn't make sense to play him. I mean, he's for me. I don't have a whole lot of high hopes for Matt DiBenedetto. I would be guessing he'd probably be out of NASCAR in a few years.
And I think that kind of the situation he's in, similar situation we had with the 42 in Chastain. This is where you kind of see the difference between a good driver and like an elite driver, is what Blaney was able to get out of that car versus what Matty D gets out of the car. What Kyle Larson was able to get out of the car versus what those other guys were able to get out of the 42. I think that's kind of a way to look at it. And so, Brandon, for a casual fan, do guys normally get these big rides coming out of, the Xfinity Series or wherever they're coming out of, or do they take the path of, I've got a Spire car, I've got to do, a Wood Brothers car, or even what Chris Bell did last year, or just most of these guys get the rides when they start?
Well, it's certainly changed over the last 5 years compared to what it was. Let's take a look at Chris Buescher, one of the great Xfinity Series racer, and I guess it goes back here I'm going to rant, for another 30 seconds here. The Cup Series is not the pinnacle it was in the 2000s. It's not. I don't understand why all these drivers are blinded by I need to get to the Cup Series. Where if they were just stay in Xfinity Series, they could win way more money and probably be a more well-known name than being a back marker in the Cup Series. So if you look at Chris Buescher, he took the first ride that was offered to him. Really, if he would wait a bit more, he probably could have got a ride at Roush or somewhere else. But he took the first ride that was offered for him in the Cup Series. And what did that bring him? It didn't bring him any wins. I know he won at Pocono, but I don't count that as a win. If you look at Anthony Alfredo getting a Cup ride this year, he was going to do better if he stayed in the Xfinity Series, run a part-time schedule. He's hopping into an inferior Cup car, and if he doesn't do something, he's going to just stay there. And that's how I would look at it. If you're moving up and you're not part of the TRD development group, or you're not part of Ford, it's not really worth moving up to the Cup Series to run, in a backmarker team. I mean, even look at JJ Yaley. JJ came from the TRD back in the day. He got his ride at Joe Gibbs. He's about the only one who I can look back and say he had bad luck, and he kind of got forced out of the Cup Series, and he's still here and he's making a comeback. I mean, JJ has more talent than most people do, and he doesn't get a ride anymore because you ran poorly in your one good ride, and then you've just been running really poor equipment your entire career. Nobody's going to want to hire you. And so as a strategic play, it's better to just stay in a lower series unless you get a good ride. Because if you start being known as, say, like a Ken Schrader or a Kenny Wallace or a Brennan Gaughan, and you go to the Cup Series and you don't really perform or do anything, those doors kind of shut for you in the good rides.
That's exactly right. You paint yourself as this guy who, I mean, everybody's used to seeing you in the back, so that's where they're going to paint you at, and that's the ride they think that you deserve, even when, like you said, I mean, maybe why not win some races in the Xfinity Series?
So, anything else on any of the drivers of the situation before we kind of move on quickly to the new races this year? Anything I missed with the drivers?
Oh, I didn't even talk about Matt Benedetto. I totally forgot about the question.
Oh,
he did
yeah.
have 10 top 10s last year, so.
Did he? I could have swore he got more. Am I looking at?
Looks like 10. I'm looking at here. 2 seconds, a third, 2 6, 2 7s, 2 8s, a 9th, and a 10th.
Oh, I thought, okay. Yeah, I thought you said 2 top 10s, and I was like, what? Because I was just going to mention that he was way more consistent the last 2 months of the year last year, and that's in the chase. I mean, if you're a driver who isn't in the chase, who doesn't have to take these stupid risks, but seeing that consistency at multiple different tracks, Phoenix, he finished 8th, 10th at Martinsville, which he had been struggling at the short tracks other than Bristol. He wasn't really good on the flat tracks, the Martinsville's, New Hampshire. He wasn't really that good in his career, so seeing that 10th place is good going in this year, and 8th place at Texas, a 12th at Kentucky to end the year. I mean, that's
Vegas.
Yeah, that's what you want to see at entering the next year. Like you just said, he finished 2nd at Vegas, although that's more of a pit strategy call. It's not really him. Let's see, where was he? Let me look right fast. What is that? Is that a low horsepower track? I can tell you. Let's see. In Vegas, he ran 73% of his laps inside the top 10 at Las Vegas. So
that's a good run. That
was actually not him having pit strategy. That's him actually having a good car.
But which, I mean, makes sense. Vegas, a high bank track, kind of high bank, like Bristol. So, I mean, it makes sense that he would run well at Vegas.
Yeah.
And 2 seconds.
And that's what you want to see, entering the next year, especially at the end of the year. You don't want to see these guys, going off a cliff, kind of like, Alex Bowman last year. Started off very well the first couple months, then the rest of the field kind of caught up, and he kind of fell back.
So, all right, so I'm going to go through a couple of these new races, then I'll throw it to you guys and let you guys talk about which of these you guys are most excited for. So I'm just going to go chronologically just to make it easier. So Bristol's got a dirt race. Obviously, first time they're doing that. That's the end of March. Then they've got a whole road course thing they're doing this year. So the Circuits of Americas, which I believe is Austin. I know it's Texas. I believe it's Austin. That's in May. The All-Star race now is going to be at Texas this year. That's a change. I believe that's the first time it's ever been at Texas. Nashville's got a race this year. Nashville's a mile and a third track. Road America, which the Xfinity Series runs in, Cup Series is now running there. Atlanta's got a second race this year. I believe it's the summer race, and then Indianapolis, they are doing the road course there. So, Jason, out of those, which are you most looking forward to from just a fan perspective?
Was that geared towards me? I'm sorry, you kind of broke up there.
Yeah.
From a fan perspective, it's got to be Bristol Dirt Track. I mean, that's going to be chaos, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So, I mean, from a fan perspective, I cannot wait to see Bristol Dirt. I don't know if it's going to hold up for 250 laps, but that should be fun. Or also, you forgot to mention the awesome Budge Shootout now at the road course. That's a new event, and that's going to be really exciting.
You mean the glorified practice?
I can't believe they ruined the shootout by putting it on that road course. I mean, like, I'm not even really excited about it anymore. It's so dumb. Bristol Dirt.
So is this they've never done Bristol Dirt Track for the Cup Series before?
They haven't done dirt on Bristol ever for NASCAR.
Okay, because I wasn't sure. I had seen something. I was pretty sure that it hadn't, but obviously NASCAR way dates me.
Yeah, this is the first Cup race on dirt since like the early 70s, and other people are, worried. They're like, how would you mess up a Bristol race? Why are you replacing it with dirt? The way I look at it, because these cars are obviously not designed for dirt. Say what you will about the truck race, but that's just chaotic, and they're not going fast enough to really show the errors of these vehicles on dirt. But Bristol Dirt is pretty much the only track that makes sense to me to run these cars with as much, styrofoam that they have. Their sheet metal is made out of styrofoam. It's going to bend. It's going to break. I mean, the banking at dirt is going to act as a buffer to help those trains and those bricks of vehicles turn into the corner. Like, if you took them to Eldora, it'd be horrible. You already have guys getting into the wall in the truck series. They're not even going fast. Or like the Knoxville race in the truck series this year. That's going to be a disaster because that track is flat. Eldora helped make the trucks look good on dirt because of I think it's 12 degrees or the 24 degrees of banking, whatever, not 24, I think it was 12. And, I think Knoxville has I forgot off the top of my head. Anyway, the banking at Bristol is going to really help the cars put on a good show. Now, if the dirt doesn't hold up after, 3 weeks of racing at that facility between them and actual dirt tracks and, or actual dirt cars and, the 4,000 laps, I mean, that's on NASCAR. But taking it to that place, getting the banking, that's the only way it's going to help these cars actually perform well.
I'm shocked. This is my first time hearing you break it down, and I expected 100% you to hate the idea of dirt on Bristol. So yes, I'm glad you're on board.
They should have gone to Eldora, because I think everybody understands that. But you can't take these Cup Series to a flat track. If you look at the ARCA Series, and they've been going to, I can't remember off the top of my head, but they've been going to dirt for years now, and it's a flat fairgrounds. Nobody can pass. Everybody runs the inside line right against the wall, and it's boring, it's lame, it's not even good racing. You end up just having to shove guys out of the way. Having the banking at a dirt track helps both lanes naturally gain an advantage on each other as the night goes through. Same with how the Bristol race, and I know I'm comparing the dirt Bristol to the asphalt Bristol, but stay with me here. It's the same thing right now of how you've seen once they put that PJ1 on the bottom because they destroyed Bristol, making it progressive banking. Once they put that PJ1 on the bottom, that kind of comes into play later in the night, and both lanes are pretty much even. That's what that banking does on dirt. If they went to a flatter track than Eldora or anything else like that, it would just ruin the Cup Series. So this is NASCAR's best chance to bring the Cup Series back to dirt with these heavy cars and these giant ass spoilers that Junior says, and these coil bound frames. And how these cars are designed right now, you have to go to a place like this to do it on dirt.
And so you were talking about the car. Is this going to be a completely different car than they would normally bring to Bristol, or is this a Bristol car that's going to have modifications for the dirt?
Nope, it's the exact same car they're running, not even at Bristol, just at the shorter tracks. Obviously, you have a short track program in your shop, and you make your shocks and everything. But the only thing they can really do is raise the ride heights, because you don't want the frame of the car, you don't want the bumper, you don't want the side skirts whacking and flying into the dirt when it enters the corner, when the weight or when the downforce and the weight pushes the car down the corner. But other than that, I mean, you can look at the truck race at Eldora. You can just see that those cars are raised, 5, 6, 7 inches higher than they normally would be to try and get clearance for, like I just said, the frame of the car coming down and everything moving around. Because, like I said, you don't want it right against the dirt, otherwise you'll just dig into the dirt and you'll destroy your car. Other than that, they're going to change their shocks around. They're going to change where they put their track bars and everything, but it's going to be the exact same chassis that they're taking to, say, Martinsville later in the year.
So, and then going to the road courses, Brandon, when you look at these road courses, are you the kind of DFS guy that looks at road courses in general for the guys, or is it breaking it down by each road course, or is it a combination of the two?
It really depends. Thank God we're not going to Sonoma because that track sucks. But I break road courses down based on how fast the road course is and what other tracks we can look at. Like Martinsville, for example. If you're good at Martinsville, you'll be good at a short track. But if you're good at a certain, or I'll compare to Sonoma and then I'll compare it to the tracks we're going to this year. Sonoma, tight corners, very technical. It's more of a slow short track, or it's more of a slow road course. It's more, like I just said, technical driving, really hitting your marks. Whereas Watkins Glen, for example, which I doubt they're going to race at this year because of COVID and everything, but I would throw Circuit of the Americas into that. That's a faster road course. That's a track that you're going to carry way more speed into the corners than, say, at Sonoma, where you basically have to stop at 4 corners of that track. Circuit of the Americas, Mid Ohio, or what other ones they're going to in the Cup Series. I can't remember off the top of my head, but these are the more faster road courses. And because of that, it helps the drivers who normally wouldn't be good at road courses. If you're struggling, downshifting or braking, entering corners, if you don't have to do that nearly as much, if you can carry more speed through the corners, it allows you to make more mistakes. And so it evens the playing field out. So people who you would argue who aren't necessarily good at road courses, maybe say Eric Almirola, Austin Dillon, Christopher Bell, you can see that they won't be at such a disadvantage compared to, say, Chase Elliott or Brad Keselowski or drivers like that.
And I think that's just kind of good general, like you said, going forward is we'll talk more about the specific individual road tracks when we get to them, but just kind of looking at it from, a general point of view, taking that at it. So I think
I hate the extra, all the road courses on the schedule this season. It's just, I mean, this is just going to be not a very good product. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of road course racing. I mean, there can be exciting at times, but I think I think road courses are one of those things that are great 2-3 times a year, when you come to them now. But it seems like we're going to be going to road courses a lot this season. They're going to be coming up good. The only good thing is, I think from a DraftKings DFS perspective, they are a little bit more easier to predict, in my opinion. I think you can find a lot more consistency with some guys through the field and road courses. And also, I mean, the good thing about road courses is it's hard for a guy to ruin your day because as long as you're still running, most likely they're on the lead lap still and they can still gain some position. So you're really not out of it most of the time on road courses. So that's fun from a DFS standpoint. But I don't know. I just hate that they threw in so many of them. Like I was fine with the Roval. But now you're going to mess with my shootout. You're going to add 6 more through the season. I mean, it's NASCAR. I want them to turn left. For years, fans have been saying, we want more short tracks. We want more short tracks. And NASCAR is like, all right, well, we'll give you some road courses, maybe some street courses in the future. But road course racing is so boring. I'm not a road course racer fan anyway. But it's boring. Except when it rains. I like it when it rains.
If it could rain, if the cars could be on fire for the whole race, I mean, that'd be cool. But the way it is right now, stages have ruined road course racing as well. There's no strategy anymore. You just stay out to the stages or you pit right before, and it breaks up that race. And then, obviously, they're going to have practice this year for the road courses they haven't been to. But if you're a driver if you don't start up front or you just want to be good at the end, you could just sandbag the entire race. We saw that last year at the Daytona Road Course with Alex Bowman, to where he started dead last and he just putted around. He sandbagged because the lap time there is like 2 minutes 30 seconds. You can just ride and last the whole time, not even trying. And I don't understand how that's a good product. I don't understand. The only reason we have this many road courses is because Elliot's good at them. I honestly believe that. I got the tinfoil hat on.
I
I'm
think
talking to the aliens, but NASCAR's fascination with trying to push Elliott because they couldn't help Junior back in the day as much as they can help Elliott here. That's the whole reason we're going to this many road courses.
Man, that would be a shame if that's really the reason why. Like I said, I don't get it. I mean, like you said, they can be boring definitely at times. I think we live in this revisionist history where we think about those first two Roval races, and those had some very exciting moments in them, and they seemed great at the time. And it's like I think this is an overreaction, as everybody wanted more of that. And it's like, well, it's hard to put on that kind of a show on a road course.
Do you know
I think
why those were memorable and why they put on such a good show? It's because that's a poorly designed road course.
yeah, yes,
And
you're right.
I mean, that's the only reason it's exciting because it's designed so horribly. It aims to have people make disasters, whether it's entering the first corner and hitting the tire barriers, or whether it's in the infield at Charlotte and getting into the grass and spinning out, or being caught up in a tire barrier, or the first practice session when they first started, when everybody kept killing themselves on the back straightaway chicane. I mean, it's a poor, or the chicane at a NASCAR turn 4. I mean, what idiot designed that last corner? I mean,
Well, it
they need to
sounds
be
like
it's so dumb.
it sounds like it sounds like it's the perfect example of it's so bad it's good. Like that's just what it was. Like we're just gonna make this so bad that it's gonna be good. I mean, that's
Yeah,
kind
but
of
yeah, but then they replaced an actual race with that. Say what you will about Charlotte. If I'm a race car driver, I would much rather be doing 180 for 3 hours than having to go through this hell of a road course, for a playoff spot.
So yeah, so I think kind of to finish this first episode off, just kind of some season long predictions that we can, in I don't know, what's the season, 8 months, whatever it is, go back on and make fun of how bad of all these predictions were and how we were nowhere close to anything being correct. But Jason, I'll start with you. The 2021 Rookie of the Year, who's it going to be?
Oh, you gave me the easy one. Isn't that Kyle
don't I got to
Larson,
butter you
right?
up? Don't I got to butter you up?
Kyle Larson, right? He's a new man, right? Does he qualify for the Rookie of the Year this year?
I would assume so.
No, it's got to be Chase Briscoe, right? I mean, 14 car, obviously great talent. We just talked about it a little bit earlier about the consistency Clint Boyer had in that car. Do I expect Chase Briscoe to have that kind of consistency? No, he's going to have some variance, but I think he's definitely going to be running around the top 12 to 14 when he doesn't get in trouble, and that should be definitely enough to beat Anthony Alfredo out for the Rookie of the Year.
And so, Brandon, I guess I'll just give you the Chase Briscoe question. Is he going to have the better, as you said, average finish of 12th that Clint Boyer had? Or, is this going to be something that may take him some time to kind of get used to it? Or you think he's going to have some success from the beginning?
It should all be Chase Briscoe. I mean, Anthony Alfredo, like I said, he's a talent. I didn't even know that you were going to ask this, but I just went on a ramble about how he's jumping into not not even a top 20 race car, and you're telling me this is going to compete with Chase Briscoe, the next face of Ford. It should be all Chase Briscoe. Side note, before we get on the next thing, the Rookie of the Year, they need to get rid of this award. I know you're like, what are you talking about? Let me bring this up to you. What does Dale Earnhardt, Rusty Wallace, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart have in common with Kevin Conway, Andy Lally, Stephen Light, Brett Moffitt? They're all
Yeah.
Rookie of the Years.
They're all Hall of Fame drivers, right?
Yeah, Andy Lally, man, Hall of Fame. Kevin Conway. Yeah.
Yeah, the last memorable Rookie of the Year for me is Jeff Gordon. I mean, I think since he won Rookie of the Year, I mean, granted, that's maybe a little bit of an overstatement, but I mean, that's the last one who, I stood out as, oh my God, this guy won Rookie of the Year, and then, he followed through and won some championships right away. I mean, that's the last real Rookie of the Year that I remember.
Or let's look at last year, for example. Cole Custer won Rookie of the Year. I would argue Tyler Reddick was a better driver the entire
For
year.
sure.
But Cole Custer just won it because he got that win and the way the points work. He was basically locked into that at the end. So they need to get rid of that too.
All right. So now that we've got the easy one out of the way, Brandon, I'll start with you for the second one. The 2021 Manufacturers Championship. Which manufacturer wins it this year?
Should be Ford. Ford has a aerodynamic advantage in their Gen 6, which is why they're pushing for a Gen 7 because everybody else is trying to catch up to them. So Ford all the way.
Yep, Ford. That's the way I'd go.
And then, so I guess that'll transition to the Owners' Championship. Jason, I'll start with you for this. What are we looking at for the Owners' Championship this year?
Oh, I mean, I would say it's probably got to be. I think it could be Hendrick this year. Yeah, I think Hendrick could win the Owners' Championship or win the Manufacturer Championship.
Brandon, are you on the same page? Obviously, the kind of the top ones you can kind of all pick between them. What are you looking at?
I think it has to be them or Stuart Haas. I don't really have a distinct, lean one way or the other. Probably Stuart Haas if I had to go with it because NASCAR kneecapped Harvick last year. So I'm sure Harvick's going to show up and try and get to Phoenix again this year.
So what's the reasoning that we think Joe Gibbs has been down? Obviously, outside of Denny, didn't really have the year last year that they're used to having. Is it just a thing of the other teams catching up, or is it just kind of what are you thinking about for that?
For Joe Gibbs has drivers who are very technical, and they're drivers who need practice. Not saying they have no talent, but Kyle Busch, for example, he knows exactly what he wants out of his car. When you give him those practices, he can find what he needs out of that car. When you get him just the race, he struggles to find that. Same thing with Truex. Truex needs that practice, not because he's bad, but just because that helps him get that machine where it needs to be. Hamlin has always been very talented, but practice would have helped him out last year. And there's no reason that they shouldn't be having practice right now this year. There's no reason they shouldn't. There's the excuses NASCAR gives are just jokes. But going into this year with no practice again, I imagine Joe Gibbs is going to struggle because that's where they were dominant in 2019. If you looked at the practice data, it was always Joe Gibbs in the top 6, in the top 7. And now you're lucky to see all 4 of those drivers run in the top 6 any point in the race.
Jason, go ahead. Is there something?
No, I wasn't gonna. I was gonna add. I guess just with Gibbs, I had a point. But yeah, like they definitely do need the practice. Like Brandon said. Oh, that was the point I was gonna make. Is why is NASCAR not doing practice? I know they've given reasons, but I mean, is it like what is the reasoning behind the scenes? Is it just the fact that they don't want to have to spend more money on more Gen 6 cars and have backup cars in the stable, and they want to wreck more cars and before this new launch? I mean, what is keeping them from running practice?
So this is just me.
Right. Yeah, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear you.
Looking. So I think they're doing it. I think the team owners are very particular about how their money is spent, and I don't think they've ever enjoyed paying crew members for an extra day, extra motels, flying out people another day of the week. And I think that's the real reason. It's for the owners to save money because NASCAR is losing out on ratings. They always use practice as a chance to advertise, obviously, the sponsors, but the race on Sunday. The teams aren't having to fly out crew members. They aren't having to buy practice sets of tires. They aren't having to do any of that stuff. And I think it's the team owners more than anything because every other series, any other road course series, heck, they're having the Rolex 24. They've been having practice for that the last 2 weeks, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people there. And so the excuse of, it's a pandemic, we don't want that many people in the garage, I mean, that's BS.
Well, if you can test negative and be in the garage on Sunday, then you can test negative and be in the garage on Friday.
Yeah, but then I got to pay him. I got to pay him to check the tire temperature on Friday and on Saturday. Whereas I can just keep him in Carolina. I'll fly him out there Saturday night, and then I don't have to pay another day of
But do you think
wages.
somebody like Gibbs, who has struggled without the practice, is thinking that way?
I'm sure. I think he is too. I mean, if I was Richard Childress, if I was the team owners,
You think Joe Gibbs, the man, the coach of the Washington Redskins, the man that
The
probably drills
Washington
in
football
practice, you
team.
think oh, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
just got
think
us canceled.
he's
Thank you.
Yeah.
you think
Appreciate it,
he's
Jason.
not
First
like
episode.
wanting practice when his team's struggling? I mean, how much money is he
Does he
possibly
care?
saving?
Does Joe care really? He's won everything. I think
Yeah,
he's just an
he
old
cares.
man having
You
fun.
think you think that competition grows out of you when you get old? No way. No way.
I was gonna bring up Roush, but he hasn't been the same since his airplane accident. But I think it's Gibbs is he's just an old man. He's having fun with his grandkids. You know, this keeps him hip.
I
I
don't
think
believe it. I don't believe it. I think that competition stuff grows out of people like us. I don't think it grows out of that type of personality, a guy that can coach a football team to the Super Bowl. I think there's something more inbred in him. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
So
We'll get
before we
Joe
get
on
to
next week and talk to him.
yeah, right. Perfect segue. Joe Gibbs will be on next week. So before we get into the driver champion, the one other question I do have, and I'm going to take Kyle Larson out of this because Kyle Larson is the easy answer. What non-playoff driver last year is most likely to make a splash this year, Jason?
Kyle Larson? No. Tyler Reddick. I think, he didn't make the chase, right? No, Tyler Reddick didn't. I'm gonna go Tyler Reddick. I think Tyler, like Brandon Minch touched on earlier, he done some pretty impressive things in that car. I really like his driving style. I like how hard he pushes that car. He's not afraid to drive it on the edge. He's definitely got a lot of talent. That RCR made some pretty good headway at the end of the season last year. I mean, you saw how Dylan was able to run pretty consistent towards the beginning of the chase. I think we could see big things out of Tyler. Like at least him probably making the chase this year.
Brandon?
I don't even know who made the chase last year.
He may have made the chase.
They let the whole field in now. Did Jones make the chase last year?
I don't believe so. I believe Jones and Reddick were the two because obviously Austin Dillon got in when he won his race.
Yeah, it would have to be Jones or Bubba. It's one of those guys. It's one of the Toyota teams.
How about Chris Bell? Did he make? I don't think he made it last year, right? Obviously
No,
in the
he didn't.
95. So maybe him in the 20. Obviously, has got a chance to kind of take that step forward. So I think the best way to finish this first one off is go who the NASCAR Cup Series champion. I'm already out there. I've already put my bet down. Denny Hamlin was 8-1. There should not be 5 guys ahead of Denny Hamlin. I get the whole narrative that Denny Hamlin doesn't win championships and all of that, but you saw what he did last year. I know there's the Gibbs kind of factor that they've struggled, but Denny was good for most of the year last year. I think he was third in laps led behind Harvick and Elliott. So he's my pick, especially with the odds included. But with the other guys, it's the first time I can remember in a while we have a lot of guys that are less than 10-1, which means that it's kind of wide open. Those guys, Harvick, Kyle, Logano, Elliott, Hamlin, Truex, Keselowski, and then Larson and Blaney are both right at 10-1. Jason, is your winner come from that group, or is it somebody that I didn't mention?
Did we finish the season at Phoenix again this year?
Yep.
Chase Elliott wins the championship again.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that if you get the option to cash that ticket out, you need to, because NASCAR is going to make Elliott the first 8-time champion within the next 12 years.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of that's kind of where it is. Is a lot of people feel that. I know that was mentioned for why we're doing some more road racing. I'll never understand why NASCAR is doing their championship race at 1:00 on a Sunday at Phoenix. It's just
Phoenix. I go to that race. I was going to go last year, but they took my ticket away when they limited the stands. But I got tickets again this year, and I've gone to Phoenix every year since 2011. And running that race at that time locally is insane. I mean, that's the hottest part of the day. Phoenix looks way better as a night race. It's the last race of the year, started at like 6 p.m. local time, running into the night. Who cares? Side note, I know I'm being extremely hard on NASCAR and Elliott, but that car was illegal at Phoenix. Am I crazy?
It was illegal.
Like it was it was way faster than the
It was
field.
way fast.
Yeah,
It was. I
like
mean, he had. Okay, I know you don't like talking about dominators, but
uh,
he had these. It was, I think, the most dominating performance. Let me just look here.
that
We can
dude flew
talk.
through the field. I mean,
He
But so
had one. I think it was, yeah, 64 dominator points, but he started from dead last and dominated the race. Uh,
he
yeah,
was
it was
inside
definitely
the
a
top
fast car.
10
In
during
like
the
10
competition
laps or
caution.
something. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like within the competition caution, he was inside the top 10 and was leading at the end of stage one. I mean, that car was illegal. And NASCAR, we've seen them bend the rules for certain popular drivers in the past. And now everybody loves Elliott. They're going to help him out as much as they can.
and so I guess not even really specifically for Elliott, but just quickly, you mentioned, if he's got quote the illegal or whatever, what would a team do to make a car faster like that at a racetrack? Like what's something that they would do?
Oh, well, you can do a lot. If you're talking in terms of fat, well, there's different things. I'll try and break them down quickly. If you want to do aerodynamically, which you already see at the plate tracks, you can put um, not stoppers, not bumps. I forgot what they're called, little shims, or I forgot what they're called. But you put them underneath the roof flaps at the plate tracks, and so whenever the air gets up, and once the that fabric that holds the roof flap up goes up once, it won't go down fully. So when you go to Daytona next week or 2 weeks from now, look at the roof flaps of the cars, and you always see on the Penske cars and on the Stewart Haas cars, those roof flaps are always angled a bit higher. They're not um, flat with the body. That's getting air off the spoiler. So you can do small things like that. You can dent in certain panels and stuff, which is why NASCAR is so anal about their templates right now, and why they got that electronic tech thing, the OSS or whatever they call it, is because teams are finding millimeters and inches and centimeters of sway and stuff in the body. And then you can do other things of, Michael Waltrip back in the day put jet fuel and different additives into the motors to make them run with more horsepower. But I think I think they put in a bigger motor into Elliott's car. He did not have a 550 horsepower motor. He may have had a 555 or a 557 or a 552, but that motor was making more horsepower, either from the tempered spacer or how that motor was made. I mean, it was making slightly more horsepower than anybody else. So, I mean, you can cheat so many different ways in NASCAR. That's not even, that's just scraping the surface.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. You could soak your tires, but that I don't think you need to do that anymore. 'Cause I think Goodyear does that for the guys now with how little wear off drop off there is on the tires. Uh, but man, I really, really hope you're wrong, Brandon. I hope that's not true.
I
Like that.
hope I am
I,
too, man. I'm too cynical for my own
Listen, I
good.
can remember, back watching Jimmy in his tear, and I'm not saying this that you're having any reason like a salty fan or anything, but I can remember there's no way he's cheating every week. Chad Canales, he's a big cheater. They're getting away with stuff, and that was the same thing I thought then. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but
And
I
see
just hope
that
it's not true.
that's different now. I know we're trying to wrap this up, but that's different now because with Chad, it was Chad cheating, which hands off, man. You got away with it. Good job. It was Ray
Right.
Evernham cheating back in the day with Gordon when he won his
Hmm.
championship. So everybody's been cheating, but it's different now because NASCAR, the organization, I feel like is doing more to get what would be optimal for the fans to enjoy. So
For what
Elliott
it's
winning the
worth,
champion.
they did penalize Elliott before that race started.
Now see exactly. That was for a body. A body panel was out of order, or like it didn't make the template. So
Huh.
NASCAR, they can put their hands in the air and be like, "Hey, we penalized him. We checked the car before. It didn't work." And that's the oldest trick in the book. If you've ever ran at a short track, you purposely make something fail to distract the officials.
Inspector.
Yeah, the inspector. You're like, oh, he'll notice this because it's obviously incorrect. It's obviously illegal, and he won't look anywhere else. I mean, that's I honestly believe that's what they did in Phoenix, to where NASCAR was like, hey, we checked the car. It was illegal. They fixed it and they ran through. If they won by, running way faster than the field, which you could see by the lap data, even in traffic, I mean, that car was illegal.
Yeah, but I mean, all that being said, I mean, Chase did have a great year last year. I mean, obviously he had fast cars week in and week out. I think he's gonna take a step forward this season. Obviously they got these road courses on there is gonna help him, but I think he's gonna rack up some wins and do some things outside of that. If we just looked at last year, when I was going over the dominator points for last season, when you broke it down by average, Chase Elliott was second behind Harvick, and we all know the dominating season Harvick had. And Chase Elliott was actually closer to Harvick than Denny Hamlin was to him for third in dominator points. So I mean, he led a lot of laps. He ran a lot of fast laps. He had good cars. The thing that kind of hindered Chase for the season was his variance. Like, he had the highest variance of finishing position amongst all the drivers. So I mean, he was constantly up and down and had some bad luck through the season that definitely hampered a lot of his finishes. So imagine this season if he gets that corrected. These new road courses, I think we're in for a Chase type dominating season. It could be 10 wins.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a good spot to wrap up this first episode, unless there's anything either of you guys have to finish it off.
I can't think of anything.
Jason, any final things from you?
Nope. Just give me a follow if you don't already listen at DFS NASCAR. I know this first one's probably going to be a little rough. We appreciate you all who have listened this far, this deep into this podcast, about an hour and 16 minutes. So you must like it, and we're going to be putting out more. Really excited for the season. Really excited to be able to do this every week with you, Brandon. I thank you for doing this. Thank you, Ryan. I'm excited about doing this. I think we found the perfect host for this. I'm excited for what this grows into. Guys, give me a follow at DFS NASCAR on Twitter. Check out my website, freenascardfs.com.
Yeah, I think you kind of put it out there. I'll kind of give it to you guys too. Remember, we'll be out there on most podcast platforms after we get this first one out. Going forward, we'll have them out there for you guys. Remember to rate, subscribe. Jason, like he said, he's DFS NASCAR, freenascardfs.com. Brandon, he's Brandon Cruz DFS on Twitter. Brandon, give him your website or your YouTube as well.
Yeah, Brandon Cruz DFS on Twitter, Brandon Cruz DFS on Patreon, covering all 3 series there this year. You can get all the data that I build my projections off of at racefortheprize.com. And yeah, that's it.
And I don't know what Brandon's charging for Patreon, but whatever it is, it's not enough. I'm sure it's worth every penny.
Oh yes, it's $18.99 a month. So if he walked into that, it's certainly undervalued. So hop into that, all 3 series, $18.99 a month on Patreon.
And like Jason said, we definitely appreciate everyone for listening, especially if you're still listening at this point. You'll realize we ramble, we rant, but that's kind of the beauty of it is, you get some good information, and then you'll get us, putting our tinfoil hats on and throwing some conspiracies out there, because that's kind of what the beauty of all this is. So like I said before, make sure you subscribe, rate once we get these out there for you guys. He's DFS NASCAR on Twitter as Jason. Brandon's Brandon Cruz DFS on Twitter, and I am Gambling DFS Tips on Twitter. Like we said earlier, if anybody's got any suggestions, anything's going forward, segments, we're going to try and build this as we go. Definitely appreciate everybody for listening, and look forward to being back next week. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.